Good morning and welcome to our channel. Today we're going to be discussing a little bit of a hot mess out of New Orleans. It appears that LaToya Cantrell, the mayor of New Orleans, has decided to utilize some federal funds issued by HUD and has now got a 10 to 11 point indictment. The news has been issued for a couple of days, but I wanted to see, whether or not it would make the national platform where it's important to most of the public out there. So if we look at X, or formerly known as Twitter, you'll see Scott Turner, the Secretary Turner for HUD. Apparently he's very pleased by being able to levy this indictment. But I ask you guys to reserve judgment because I want to go over what actually happened and for what amount. And so we can determine whether or not this was a complete misuse of federal funds or this is a witch hunt on something that's a very small event, in my opinion. So let's take a look at the indictment issued by HUD. And so it goes on to say to Dear Mayor Cantrell, which is the mayor of New Orleans, the Department of Housing and Urban Development hereby notifies you of your immediate suspension for participation in procurement of transactions as a participant or principal with HUD and throughout the executive branch of federal government. This action is in accordance with procedures set forth, Title II, Code of Federal Regulations, CFR, and then it goes a little bit more. So your suspension is based on your superseding indictment filed by the U.S. District Court. Is charging you with, number one count of conspiracy in violation of 18 U.S.C., 6 counts of wire fraud, in addition to 1 count of conspiracy to obstruct justice, 1 count of obstruction of justice in violation of 18 U.S.C., and 2 counts of false declaration before a grand jury. I imagine that would be the federal grand jury. So, okay. Now everybody's pissed off. What's the mayor doing? Why is she ripping everybody off? And what's going on? Now let's look at the actual details. I have not been able to verify them, but by the presumption of both legitimacy of the website I'm going to show you, then I'll tell you that you can pretty much come up with your own opinion. So let's take a look here. The controversies. According to NOLA.com, which is New Orleans, their major news organization, Cantrell was found to be using taxpayer-funded credit cards for personal expenses, which she later repaid. The New Orleans mayor candidate, LaToya, and her staff used her office's taxpayer-financed credit cards to cover almost $4,350 in purchases. I repeat, $4,350. Now, keep in mind, we've gone national news for this, right? $4,350. About the same you get as a burglar robbing a house part-time, right? So, sometimes, and keep in mind, she repaid that. She just wasn't caught for doing it, right? And so, she entered the mayor's race. It goes on that, according to New Orleans in 2020, several liens were filed against Cantrell due to her or immediate family owing upwards of $95,000 in back taxes. Again, no affiliation here. She's like every other American. She probably owes back taxes. So they're making an argument as adding this into it. So I want to go back to Scott Turner here. Look, $3,400, $3,500, $5,000, right? This is a witch hunt against this lady. She even repaid the money before she got caught, okay? I understand the complexities of, trying to follow the law, but let's be honest here. The lady paid the money back. The law's a law, but to sit here and try to give her an 11-point federal indictment over $5,000, I'm sorry, that's a witch hunt. Okay, I'm not defending her actions, but the little, each count of wire fraud could get you up to 20 years in prison. I don't think this lady needs to serve 100 years. Clearly, the punishment needs to be equal to the crime. But this is way over the top. This is so disingenuous. Of course, I appreciate all the activities by HUD and its leaders to root out crime and all. But for $4,000 or $5,000, it appears to be more of a witch hunt, right? So here's a person who even went to prison. They would owe nothing when they got out because they already repaid it. And having liens on your property and so on for not paying back taxes, well, half of fucking America would be in prison for that. So again, I'm not defending this woman's position, but I mean, we're going way over the top for such a little amount of money. So I'm hoping you guys would weigh in and tell me your thoughts on this. If you have additional information that would suggest that the amounts are greater, that she didn't repay it, that this was actually just a running scam at a much larger scale, I'm open to hearing that, okay? I'm only reporting what I've gotten this morning. And looking at this, 11-point federal indictment for $5,000. We've indicted less for crackheads, okay? So we have to reason this out a bit as to whether or not we're using a tremendous amount of federal resources on a witch hunt for a mayor in New Orleans that only signed contracts. Yes, you use some credit cards. Ain't the first time in history people have done that. There's lots of executives and people that aren't even that important that have taken on jobs where they use the company credit cards. At least this lady paid it back. And to our Constitution, I don't understand why you would make $140,000 and then go out and do something like this knowing the risk. But that's the game. You played the game, you lose. But does she really need to lose most of her life in prison over $5,000 that was repaid before she was caught? I mean, it does spell to some dignity, but, I'm sure you guys are going to agree or disagree with me, and this may become a heated Democratic or Republican concept, but the reality of it is we need to be fair in all things that we do, whether it's immigration issues, we're dealing with white and black folks in the city of New Orleans, and the decisions we make in the witch hunts. So the reason I keep bringing that up is I can't think of a better name for 11-point indictment, 11-point federal indictment against a woman that made little more than probably a master plumber at $140K a year and repaid the money. I understand she's like a lot of people in a downward spiral. Hell, even my own business struggles at times as a consultant for low income. It's not like my services are offered to people who have a tremendous amount of money, or I could even charge a lot, right? So I think, and this all comes out of that pandemic that affected a lot of us. So I'm saying that maybe we need to back up and think about this a bit before we hand out 20 and 30-point indictments against people. How much federal resources are we using to do this? She broke the law, I get that. But 11-point indictment? I mean, I have to ask myself, we're going over the top of this. If anybody can suggest otherwise, please do comment below in the video. Link up any information you can get to my office so we can actually discuss further. I mean, I know some of you are connected out there, and so if anybody has additional information, please do send it over to our office. We'd like very much to hear even more than what was written in this indictment, this letter, as well as using Wikipedia. Okay, I'd rather use Wikipedia than to use national news because, it tends to be more political. And so that's the goal here, is to determine what would be appropriate in the situation. It's not like she accepted federal funds. They were intended for homeless people. These were credit cards in the duty of her job. She spent money in areas she shouldn't have spent it for. She repaid that money before being caught. Clearly there's got to be a circumstance where she has to pay. But I mean, to indict somebody so much so, to take away the rest of their life because they were struggling financially. Now, I understand a lot of this arguments around the boyfriend. We're talking about extra, right? So this is not about indictments. We've also in the national news are trying to make a big issue of the boyfriend. But she has a right to date people, whether people like it or not, even if it's unprofessional. And maybe that's not the most professional thing to do, but people are human, right? And then we're talking about whether or not she owes back taxes or her family. What the fuck does that have to do with this indictment? So we're indicting not only on the basis of breaking laws, but we're trying to indict her character for shit that's not even related to this. This is why it's important, guys. We don't just jump after everything we read in the news, because otherwise it could be you. Your character could be indicted, okay? But again, I'm welcome to hear what anybody has to say, any evidence y'all can produce outside of going to national news and media that tend to persuade things a Democratic way or Republican way. So I'm waiting to hear those arguments. Look, guys, I've enjoyed talking with you. My name is Jay. I'm the owner of Section8Consulting.com. I brought this issue because it hits home, close to home for me. And I always like to appreciate anybody that's in service to the state of Louisiana. We're all human. We make mistakes. The question here would be, does the punishment or the at least the intended punishment, do we even think that would even match the course of what was taken? Okay? Enjoy your day. We'll see you Sunday, hopefully in the morning, maybe in the afternoon. Thank you again. Have a great day.